Imagine taking like a single clipping from a really thriving, vibrant green plant.
Okay, just a standard cutting.
Right, exactly. You take that clipping, you put it in a new pot, and you set it right next to the original mother plant.
So they're basically sitting side by side.
Side by side in the exact same front yard. They're soaking up the exact same sunlight, they're drinking the exact same rain, and, biologically speaking, they share the exact same DNA.
Because it's literally a clone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a genetic clone. So why, a few weeks later, is the cloned clipping looking pale and yellowing and practically starving to death?
Well, the mother plant is just totally thriving.
Yes. To solve a biological mystery like that, we actually have to look inside the brain of an open source software engineer.
Which is such a wild pivot, but it makes so much sense when we get into it.
It really does. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're stepping away from the usual breaking news and, peer-reviewed journals.
We're doing something a bit different today.
Yeah, we're taking you into an incredibly meticulous, frankly staggering personal blog called kianmeng.org.
Yeah, we are basically walking straight into someone's digital workshop, and the sheer scale of what's being built in this workshop is really what makes it so compelling.
It's massive.
It is. Our guide today is the author Eng, and he refers to himself as an old software plumber who spends his nights tinkering with floss.
And for anyone not deep in the tech world, FLOSS stands for Free, Libre, and Open Source Software.
Right, and that's a community that treats documentation almost like a moral imperative.
Yeah, right.
If you build something or you fix something and you don't document it for the next person, you haven't really finished the job.
It's just baked into the culture.
Yeah.
And that philosophy is completely baked into Eng's worldview. He doesn't just apply it to the code he writes. He applies it to his entire existence.
His whole life, yeah.
When we look at his blog archives, especially over recent years, like 2022 to 2025, we are talking about him publishing over 700 posts a year.
Which is, that's multiple entries a day, every single day.
Without fail. He is applying a programmer's analytical, debugging mindset to the messy, organic world around him.
And he categorizes everything.
Oh, absolutely everything. He has beta spawn logs where he tracks the breeding cycles of his aquarium fish.
Wow.
He's got notes on AI, notes on dieting, notes on meditation, and, notes on Rust programming.
It's just a relentless tracking of reality.
It is. And the mission for our deep dive today is to explore what happens when that relentless software plumber mindset gets pointed straight at the dirt.
I love that.
We are zeroing in on a single entry. This is from March 19th, 2025, and it's titled Notes on Gardening, Part 481.
Part 481. Just pause on that for a second.
Right.
If you, the listener, have written 481 distinct, chronologically numbered notes purely on your gardening observations.
You're seeing things the rest of us just miss entirely.
Exactly. You are paying a level of attention to the physical world that most of society just completely filters out. You're basically perceiving the matrix of your own backyard.
Yeah, and what's fascinating about this specific entry is that it actually doesn't start with the soil or the plants at all.
Right. It starts with a house.
Yeah, a house painting project in the front yard.
Yeah.
Eng notes that he is finally wrapping up this massive painting job. And it's a task he openly admits was delayed by years of procrastination.
We've all been there.
Oh, for sure. But he explicitly writes that it was only after this looming unfinished project was mostly complete that he was actually able to turn his attention to the neglected plants.
Which perfectly illustrates this really well-known concept of cognitive load.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
When you have a massive uncompleted task just sitting in your immediate physical environment, like a house that desperately needs painting.
It's just staring at you.
Exactly. It acts as a constant visual and mental blocker. The psychological literature often refers to this as the Zeigarnik effect.
Zeigarnik effect, right?
Yeah, it's where unfinished tasks hold this really privileged, intrusive place in our memory. So every single time Eng walked out his front door, his brain was, silently consuming energy.
Just processing the guilt.
The guilt of not painting, calculating the logistics of when to buy the paint, or just, registering the aesthetic displeasure of looking at peeling walls.
It is exactly like when you have a super messy desk in your home office.
Oh, yeah. Perfect example.
You can spend months just ignoring the stacks of mail, the tangled charging cables, the empty coffee cups. You just tell yourself you're focusing on your computer screen.
You tune it out.
Right. But then one Saturday, you finally snap, You clear away all the clutter, you wipe down the wood, and suddenly, for the first time in a year, you notice that your desk lamp has been flickering the entire time.
Yes. Or you spot like a deep scratch on the base of your monitor.
Exactly. The environment didn't actually change, your capacity to perceive it did.
Because the background processes that were eating up your mental RAM were finally terminated.
That's such a good way to put it.
So the visual noise of the unpainted house was cleared away. And because Aang possesses this hyper-analytical engineering mind, the second that bandwidth was freed up, his perception just shifted into absolute high resolution.
You could actually see his garden again.
Right. He was suddenly capable of seeing the granular details of his front yard.
Yeah.
And that newly cleared bandwidth sets the stage for the mystery he just immediately stumbles into.
Yeah, so he looks down at his newly noticed garden and spots this very specific botanical puzzle. He has 2 pots of sisu spinach.
Also commonly known as Brazil spinach, I think.
Brazil spinach. And there's this stark, unavoidable visual discrepancy between them.
The photos he posts are pretty striking.
Night and day. So on the left, he has the original mother plant.
Yeah.
And it is looking phenomenal, just vibrant, thick, deep, dark green.
Thriving.
But sitting right next to it, on the right, are the younger plants. And these younger plants were grown from cuttings of that exact mother plant. But they look terrible.
Really rough.
They are this pale, sickly green with a very noticeable yellowish tint. He includes the photograph in his log, and like we said, the contrast is just undeniable.
One is clearly thriving, and the other is visibly degrading.
And I have to pause here and admit some real confusion, because this really defies surface-level biology.
It seems like it shouldn't happen.
Right. If the younger plants are literal cuttings, meaning they are genetic clones of the mother plant, and they are sitting in the exact same front yard, in the exact same climate, getting the exact same sun and rain.
What's different?
Exactly. Where's the missing variable? They are the exact same biological software running on the exact same hardware.
That is the exact paradox here. And you are completely right to be confused because on a surface level, it makes zero sense.
Thank you.
But if we look at this through Aang's lens, as a software flummer, we have to treat this like a bug report.
Okay, a bug report.
Yeah, in software engineering, when a program runs perfectly on one server but totally crashes on another, and you have identical code and identical environments, you don't just shrug.
You dig deeper.
Right. The bug has to be hidden in the dependencies or the inputs. You perform A/B testing.
You isolate the variables.
Exactly. Aang is essentially running an A/B test in his garden. The genetics are the A and B, and they are identical. The location, watering, and sunlight are the same.
So the missing variable has to be invisible to the naked eye.
Precisely. In botany, plant nutrient deficiencies almost always manifest as visible changes in the morphology of the plant.
You mean how it looks?
Right. Specifically in the color and growth patterns of the leaves and stems.
So the yellowing leaves aren't just like a random sign of a sad plant. They are a specific error code being output by the biological system.
The symptom is the output. What Aang needs to find is the faulty input. The system is lacking some sort of chemical dependency.
And what I absolutely love about this is how Aang actually goes about finding that missing dependency.
Oh, this is the best part.
He doesn't go knock on his neighbor's door to ask for gardening advice. He doesn't drive down to the local hardware store or plant nursery to ask the clerk at the counter.
No, he goes straight to the command line.
He turns entirely to his tech stack. He tasks an AI chatbot to solve his spinach problem.
It's brilliant.
He feeds the visual symptoms into a language model.
He essentially treats the AI like a diagnostic compiler. He asks it to generate a comprehensive list of common plant deficiencies alongside their corresponding visual symptoms.
He wants the raw data.
Yeah, he doesn't just ask for a conversational guess, He gets a structured tabular breakdown back from the AI, and then he cross-references this generated table with the high-resolution photograph he took of his pale, yellowish sisu spinach.
Let's just talk about the incredible cross-disciplinary agility happening in this moment.
Oh, it's a masterclass.
Because in the exact same month, March 2025, Aang is publishing these deeply technical posts on this exact same blog. He has an entry called Notes on AI, Part 6, Fast Regex Generation with LLMs.
Which is heavy stuff.
Yeah, and for anyone unfamiliar, regex or regular expressions are these incredibly dense, complex search patterns used by programmers to parse and manipulate massive amounts of data.
It looks like absolute gibberish to most people.
Totally. And he has another post called Notes on AI, Part 4, How I Use Aider with My Python, which details his use of advanced AI coding assistance.
So he is a guy who lives in the command line, wrangling abstract data structures,
Right.
yet he just seamlessly pivots. What's fascinating here is he takes these bleeding edge technological tools built to sift through millions of lines of code or generate complex syntax.
And he points them directly at a simple, physical pot of dirt in his front yard.
Exactly. For you as the listener, this is such a brilliant masterclass in breaking down the silos we build around our skills.
We box ourselves in.
We do. We tend to think, well, I use AI to help draft difficult emails or write code, and I use a dusty old book for gardening. Aang refuses to see those artificial boundaries.
To him, the universe is just a flow of data and debugging processes. Biology is really just another operating system he is trying to understand.
And his debugging process works.
It actually works. He runs the visual data of the pale leaves against the AI-generated table, and he gets a definitive match.
So what was the diagnosis?
The diagnostic output reveals that the younger sisu spinach cuttings are suffering from a nitrogen deficiency. That is the bug causing the pale, yellowing error code.
Okay, so a nitrogen deficiency is incredibly common, but finding that out really only solves half the puzzle.
Right, because identifying the missing element, the nitrogen, explains what is wrong with the cuttings. But it does absolutely nothing to explain why there is a discrepancy in the first place.
The mystery of the AD test is still there.
Exactly. Why does the mother plant have an abundance of nitrogen, allowing it to look dark and vibrant, while its genetically identical clones, sitting literally inches away in the exact same yard, are starving for it?
Where did the missing variable go?
Yeah, where's the nitrogen?
Well, this is where Aang has to step beyond the AI's diagnostic table and perform his own root cause analysis. He has to deduce the hidden history of the soil.
The hidden history, I like that.
And his final deduction is just brilliant in its simplicity. Aang concludes that the mother plant's rich, vibrant green color is entirely due to the legacy fertilizer left in its root system from when he originally purchased it.
From the professional plant nursery.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack the mechanics of that. When you buy a plant from a commercial nursery, it doesn't just come in like regular dirt.
No, it's highly optimized.
Right. Nurseries use these optimized, chemically engineered substrates. They pack the root ball with slow-release chemical fertilizer pellets.
You know those little green or yellow spheres you sometimes see in potting mix?
Yes, those exact things. Those pellets act like a chemical engine. They slowly break down and feed the plant a steady stream of nitrogen for months, sometimes even years.
Wow. But the cuttings, on the other hand, were likely just placed into a standard bag of home potting soil or, just generic dirt from the yard.
They didn't have those slow-release chemical engines embedded in their roots.
No. And to put this in a way that aligns perfectly with Aang's software mindset, the mother plant came preloaded with premium software.
Oh, that's such a great analogy.
Right. It arrived with a hidden, built-in advantage baked deep into its hardware. The cuttings were basically a freshman stall on a completely blank, unenhanced hard drive.
They didn't inherit the environmental advantages of the mother plant, even though they inherited the exact same DNA.
Exactly.
We look at them and think, they are failing at being a plant. But really, they're just operating without the premium subscription package.
Think about the broader implications of that realization. I mean, this goes so far beyond a pot of Brazil spinach in a front yard.
Oh, totally.
This right here is the true insight of this deep dive.
Huh.
How often do we make this exact same error in judgment in our own lives?
All the time.
We look at two entities. Maybe it's two startup businesses or two creative projects or even two different people. They appear to share the same basic DNA, the same starting line, the same external environment.
On paper, they look identical.
Right. And we see one that is thriving, vibrant, and wildly successful. And we see the other that is pale, struggling, and just barely surviving.
And we immediately judge the struggling one. We assume there is a fundamental flaw in its work ethic or like its core design.
We wonder why it can't just be more like the thriving one. We assume it's a flaw in the plant itself.
Yeah.
What we almost always fail to account for is the invisible fertilizer. We are totally blind to the legacy resources.
Hidden support systems.
Exactly. The initial environment, the silent capital, whether that is financial capital, social capital, or in the case of the spinach, literal chemical capital.
Stuff that one entity had baked into its foundation from day one and the other simply did not.
Right. The mother plant wasn't trying harder to be green.
It just had nursery dirt.
It just had nursery dirt. Eng's deduction forces us to confront the fact that what looks like a fair one-to-one comparison almost never is.
Because we cannot see the history of the soil.
We really can't. The younger spinach cuttings aren't genetically defective. They are genuinely deprived of a resource that the mother plant was, quietly hoarding from its past.
That is just such a profound takeaway from such a simple observation. Let's trace the full arc of the journey we just took through Eng's digital workshop because it's wild.
It really is a journey.
We started with a guy who was carrying the mental weight of an unpainted house for literally years. He finally picks up a brush, he finishes the job, the cognitive fog lifts, his mental RAM is cleared, and he suddenly notices the granular details of his plants.
And then he spots a biological discrepancy between two genetically identical things.
Right, and instead of shrugging it off or guessing, he leans into his floss background. He pulls out an AI chatbot, treats the yellowing leaves like a software error code, runs a tabular diagnostic, discovers a nitrogen deficiency.
And ultimately traces the entire mystery back to the hidden legacy fertilizer from a commercial plant nursery.
It is a phenomenal chain of logic,
Yeah.
driven entirely by curiosity.
It really is. And think about this. None of it, absolutely none of it, would have been captured, understood, or shared if Eng wasn't the kind of person who believes in meticulously tracking his life.
Exactly. Whether he is writing notes on Home Improvement Part 81 about his ceiling paint, or book reading notes on blood pressure Part 34.
Or notes on fish keeping Part 95.
Yeah. It is this relentless, almost obsessive commitment to observation and documentation that makes this level of everyday insight possible.
It really challenges you to think about the immense value of paying attention to the mundane, which actually leads to a thought I want to leave you, the listener, with today.
Let's hear it.
We have spent this time seeing how Eng treats his garden like a piece of software that needs debugging. And by doing so, he uncovers these invisible truths about a spinach plant and legacy resources. We spend so much of our own lives constantly trying to upgrade our own software. We try out new productivity hacks, we attempt new diets, we try to learn new skills to make ourselves more vibrant and successful. But what if your underlying soil is completely depleted?
Wow. You can't run premium software on a corrupted hard drive.
You really can't. If your baseline stress levels are constantly maxed out, or you are carrying years of accumulated sleep debt, you are essentially a plant trying to grow without nitrogen.
The hardware's failing.
Exactly. No amount of new software is going to fix a fundamental hardware deficiency. So I challenge you to ask yourself, what is the invisible soil in your life right now?
That's a great question.
If you started logging your daily observations as meticulously as a software plumber's commit log, what hidden patterns or nutrient deficiencies would you finally be able to see in your own environment?
Maybe you'd finally realize why your own desk lamp has been flickering this whole time. Keep wandering off the main avenues, keep observing the little things, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.